All right, class, I want to go over one of the pitfalls of if statements and one of the ways, and really the most important way that we can avoid it. Let's get right into it. So one of the main pitfalls of if statements is that we can write if statements without the curly braces. And I know I talked about this as something we want to avoid, but it is possible. And I want to show you why we want to avoid it. So let's say we have an integer num, and let's give it a value of 11. And say, for example, I say this: if num is greater than 2. So if num is greater than 2, I'm going to go ahead and write a system.out.println. And I'll go ahead and just print that num is bigger than 2. This is perfectly legal. And Java, when it reads through this, it will evaluate this first expression, the num greater than 2. It will evaluate it to true. And our system.out.println will be read. If it evaluates this to false, it will skip this line of code and it will simply move on to the next line. And we can actually get a little bit more complicated with this. So we can even nest ifs this way. So let's go ahead and get rid of, whoops, didn't mean to do that. Let's say we can, oops, still hit the wrong button. There we go, there's the right button. So let's get rid of this statement and let's nest this real quick. So we can even nest these things, kind of cool. If, let's say, num is less than 10, then we could do a new system.out.println. Println, and we could say 2 less than num less than 10. Okay, so we intuitively know that this statement right here on line 3 would not print because our two if statements, this first one would evaluate to true, so this one would be true, and this line would be false. So this line intuitively would not run, right? That's pretty simple. What if I add this in? What if I say else system.out.println and let's say that num is less than 2, right? So we want it so that if num is less than 2, we'll print out this line. But that's not really how Java works. Java is going to pair the closest else to its closest if. And even though we've lined up our else's with this if up here, this top if is really not the pair of this else. This else is in fact paired with this if. So what would print out in this case would be that num is less than 2, which we know that's not true, right? Because it sees this one as false, it finds the closest else and it's going to run that else. In this case, it will tell us that num is less than 2 when num is clearly greater than 2. This is why, for the most part, you really want to use your curly braces. It is very rare that you don't use curly braces if you're using a standard if statement. If you don't want to use curly braces, you only want one statement, put that statement on the same line as your if statement, just like this. That way you know it's all one thing. If you're going to put this system.out.println on a new line, put curly braces around it so that you clearly delineate what is part of the if and what is not just for you, but also for Java and for any future programmers that read it. So if you're going to write an if statement with only one line, put that line on the same line as the if. Java doesn't care, but you as a programmer will know that this is all one statement and should be counted as one unit. This needs curly braces. Okay, that is a pitfall of else's and ifs. Don't do this. Let's get into the next lesson.